My name is Singh. I fought a war. I came home in pieces. I lost my guide, found my reason, and became something I never thought I could be. A quiet guardian in a world that forgot how to protect its own. This is not a war story. It's a love story. For the men I couldn't save. For the child I kept my promise to. And for the life I'm still learning how to live. I never thought war would be this quiet. Not at first, anyway. In the movies, it's all shouting and explosions, men sprinting through smoke with flags and fury. But here, in the middle of Hellman's sun-baked silence, it was just the hum of the engine, the rattle of my gear, and the dry taste of nerves I couldn't swallow. It was my first deployment, first mission, first everything. My name was Lieutenant Singh, infantry officer, USMC, fresh out of Quantico, shiny bars, crisp salute, clean boots, and absolutely, undeniably terrified. The men around me didn't say much. They didn't have to. You could feel it, the way they watched me when I gave an order. The way they waited half a beat longer than necessary before moving. Respect isn't given in the Corps. It's earned in the dirt. And I hadn't bled yet. Gibbs had, though. Master Sergeant Matthew Gibbs. A walking war story. Old enough to be my father, twice as hard, half as loud. He had that kind of calm that didn't come from peace, it came from surviving enough chaos to stop flinching at it. He'd been called back for this rotation. Volunteered, actually. Said he wanted to see the beast one last time. No one questioned him. No one ever did. He watched me from the MATV passenger seat like a hawk with a sense of humor. Always chewing something. Always squinting, like the desert sun personally offended him. "You're gripping that rifle like it owes you money," he said. First words he said to me all day. I loosened my hands. Pretended not to care. Failed. The patrol was routine. Or so they said. We were clearing a mud compound on the edge of Bardak village. Locals had gone quiet in the last week. Intelligence suggested Taliban fighters had moved back in. Another sweep. Another set of boots on powdery ground. Another rotation of young men trying to stay alive long enough to learn something. I led the stack. Heart pounding. Counting every breath like it was borrowed. My voice cracked when I gave the signal to move. We crossed the threshold of the compound just after noon. Sun straight overhead. Shadows sharp and unforgiving. The air felt off. Like it was holding its breath. That's when I saw her. A girl. Maybe 8. Standing alone in the middle of the courtyard. No shoes. Holding something in her hands. A doll? A phone? No. It was too smooth. Too symmetrical. A pressure plate. I froze. "Sir." Toller whispered behind me. "You good?" No. I wasn't good. Time stretched. My lungs refused to work. Every inch of me screamed to move, but I couldn't tell which way was safe. Couldn't think. Couldn't lead. And then Gibbs moved. He lunged past me. Yelled something I couldn't hear. Everything exploded at once. Sound. Heat. Dust. Screams. And then, nothing. I woke up 10 seconds later, flat on my back, ears ringing like church bells inside my skull. Smoke filled my nose. My mouth tasted like metal, dirt, and blood. Someone was dragging me. It was Reyes. One of ours. LT. LT, you're okay. Stay down. Gibbs. Gibbs is hit. That word, Gibbs, snapped everything back into place. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the pain in my shoulder. Ran toward the crater. I didn't even feel the ground under me. Just a tunnel of noise and panic. He was there. What was left of him? Legs shredded. Blood pouring from his side. Face twisted, not in fear, but in frustration. Like death was an inconvenience. I dropped beside him. My hand shook as I tried to apply pressure, but there was too much. Too much red. Too much damage. It was like trying to hold water with a fist. His eyes locked onto mine. "Don't look like that," he rasped. His voice sounded wet. "You're not the one dying. I can get a bird, medevacs inbound. We'll get you home," I stammered. Lied. We both knew it. Gibbs smiled. A weak, crooked thing that broke me more than the blood did. He reached into his chest rig and pulled out something small, bloody fingers curled around it like a secret. A photograph. A little girl. Dark hair. Missing front teeth. Laughing into the sun. "My daughter," he said. "Charlotte. You remember that name. You find her someday." I nodded. I didn't understand. I just nodded. "Tell her," he paused, choked. "Tell her I was trying to come home." And then, he was gone. The helicopter came 20 minutes later. Carried what was left of him in a black bag. No salute. No flag. Just dust. and silence. I sat alone that night outside the wire, staring at the picture he gave me. The corners were burned. Her smile was not. That was the moment I stopped being a new officer. That was the moment war stopped being abstract. That was the moment I became the man I promised him I would be. They told me I did everything right. Chain of command, medical priority, perimeter lockdown, radio protocol, textbook response to a field casualty. But textbooks don't tell you how to live with blood under your fingernails. They don't tell you how to sleep when a man dies with your name in his mouth. Gibbs was gone. 1 week. 7 days since the ambush in Bardak. I was still carrying his dog tags in my chest pocket. His photo of Charlotte was folded twice, tucked behind the plastic ID in my helmet. Every time I pulled my gear on, I felt her smile pressed against my temple. It made my stomach twist. I didn't know her, but I knew the weight of a promise. And now, I wore it like armor. No one really talked about it. About him. Marines grieve in silence. We keep the rhythm going. Eat. Clean. Patrol. Report. Sleep, if you're lucky. And then do it again. But the platoon changed. I felt it. Like we were walking over cracked ice no one wanted to acknowledge. Some of the guys joked more than usual. Others stopped speaking at all. One of them, Rodriguez, taped a black band to his rifle grip. Said nothing. Just kept it there. I led patrols like a machine. Checked every alley 3 times. Made the squad halt if a dog barked too close. I started reviewing route plans at 0400, redlining every junction, recalculating every step. They said I was being careful. What they didn't say was that I was afraid. Not of dying. Of failing. Again. It was during our 3rd joint patrol with ANA that the fault lines cracked open. Lieutenant Hashmi was their liaison. Afghan National Army, Kabul-trained, sharp-eyed, and fluent in sarcasm. He called me Captain America the first time we met. I didn't correct him. We were sweeping an orchard near Nazad when his soldiers stopped moving. I asked what was wrong. He said, "They haven't been paid in 3 months." I stared at him. They're in a war zone. What does money have to do with? He cut me off. "Lieutenant, if you can't afford food for your daughter, you won't shoot straight for your country." He was right, of course, and I hated him for it. One of his men, barely older than Charlotte in the photo, threw his rifle into the dirt and walked off the patrol. Just walked away. No one stopped him. I watched the kid disappear over a hill and realized how naive I still was. That night, I sat on a sandbag wall behind the barracks, watching the moon rise over barbed wire. I had a voice recorder in my hand, the kind the old guys used for notes before smartphones took over. Gibbs gave it to me the night before our first op. He called it his poor man's therapist. I never asked if he actually used it, but now I did. Day 14. It's quiet, but it's not peace. Hashmi's right. These people are tired. Tired of promises. My men are tired, too. And I'm tired of pretending I know what I'm doing. I paused, looked up at the stars, tried to imagine what the sky looked like in North Carolina, tried to remember the sound of my mother's voice. Couldn't. Gibbs. I don't know if this counts as keeping your word, but I haven't forgotten. I won't forget her. The next morning, Reyes handed me a thermos of the worst coffee I'd ever tasted and a crumpled photograph. Found it in Gibbs' locker. Thought you should have it. It was a picture of the squad. All of us. Taken before we left Pendleton. Gibbs had his arm around me, making that dumb toothpick smirk. There was a note on the back in his messy handwriting. LT's got potential. Needs sand in his soul first. I stared at that line until the ink started to blur. Later that week, we lost Hargrove. 19 years old. Quiet kid. Used to draw comics on the back of his ration boxes. We were sweeping a path near a canal, just outside Gereshk. 1 minute, he was telling Reyes a story about a girl back home. The next, he was gone. Landmine. No warning. No scream. Just a thud. And the wrong kind of silence. I held his hand until he stopped shaking. Told him he was going to be okay. He wasn't. When the helicopter lifted him out, I didn't cry. I just stood there, hands behind my back, like they taught us in officer school. Like posture meant anything. But that night, I sat on the dirt behind the tents again. And I hit record. He was just a kid, Gibbs. Just a damn kid. I didn't know him long enough. And somehow, that makes it worse. Because I never got to protect him. The desert doesn't give you time to grieve. It just gives you ground to bury things in. We kept moving. Patrol. Debrief. Patrol. Report. But somewhere in all that motion, something in me changed. I stopped trying to be the officer I thought they wanted. I started being the one I needed when Gibbs died. No speeches. No bullshit. Just presence. Just orders that made sense. Just someone to carry the weight when it got too heavy. Some of the guys started calling me LT without the edge in their voice. One of them, Morgan, handed me a sketch Hargrove had done before he died, a caricature of me with a giant helmet and tiny boots. Said I should keep it. I did. I keep it still. That month, we called in our first airstrike. Compound 5 clicks east. Confirmed HVT. Bad intel. Turns out the guy wasn't Taliban. He was a tribal elder holding a funeral. We leveled it anyway. Command said collateral was acceptable. But the girl with the blood on her dress, standing in the wreckage afterward, she didn't look like collateral. She looked like Charlotte. And I couldn't look at her for long. I started writing letters to no one. Some addressed to Charlotte. Some to Gibbs. Some to myself. Most of them started the same way. If I don't make it back. Not because I thought I wouldn't, but because the desert was turning us all into ghosts. And I was afraid I already was one. There are nights in Hellman when the wind sings. Not loud. Not angry. Just soft. Dry. Like the land itself is trying to remember something. On those nights, the dreams are worse. Not dreams, really. Memories that forget how to stay buried. Sometimes I dream of Gibbs, his voice, his laugh, the way he grumbled about the coffee. Sometimes I dream about the little girl in Bardak, the one I couldn't save. And sometimes I dream about Charlotte, a ghost I've never met, calling for a father who never made it home. I don't know why her name stuck so hard in my chest. Maybe because it was the last thing he said. Maybe because it felt like a tether, pulling me back from whatever edge I was always one step from falling over. Or maybe I just needed to believe that if I couldn't save a man's life, I could still keep his memory alive. We were ordered to link up with the ANA again, another joint patrol. Another open stretch of road where death could lie under any pile of dirt. Lieutenant Hashmi met us at the northern FOB. He was already mid-argument with one of his commanders, his hands flying, words sharp and Dari. When he turned to me, the exhaustion in his face made him look 10 years older than he was. "Your convoy's late," he said. "Did you stop to admire the poppies?" I didn't laugh. Neither did he. The village we were headed to, Shakarak, had gone quiet. Too quiet. We all knew what that meant. As we approached, something felt off. No dogs. No carts. No kids. Just silence and heat and too many shadows. Hashmi raised a fist. We halted. I moved forward with Reyes and Morgan to clear the first compound. A narrow alley led to a low wall. Beyond it, a one-room schoolhouse, abandoned, doors open, papers blowing across the floor. Inside, it was dark. Dust floated in slivers of light like ash. Then we saw it. Wires. Taped bundles. Crates with chemical markings. A field lab. Bomb-making materials. Camouflaged with books and chalkboards. Reyes whistled low. "They're using a school," he whispered. "That's low, even for them." It wasn't just a lab. It was propaganda. Shielding weapons behind innocence. Using children's futures as armor. I radioed it in. Command told us to document and wait for EOE. Hashmi stood beside me, eyes fixed on a shattered globe lying in the corner. "I used to be a teacher," he said quietly. "Before the war. Before this." His voice cracked something open in me. "You still are," I said. He didn't answer. Just turned and walked outside. That night, back at camp, I couldn't sleep. The image of the school wouldn't leave me. So I did what I always did. I wrote. Not a letter this time. A journal entry. For me. For Gibbs. For whoever would come after. Day 29. We found a school with bombs in the walls. The enemy doesn't just destroy life. They hollow it out and wear it like a mask. I keep wondering how many times I'll see something sacred turned into a weapon. I keep wondering when I'll stop feeling shocked. Maybe when I stop feeling anything at all. I closed the notebook and leaned back against the wall of the tent. Outside, the wind picked up again, soft against the canvas. That night, I dreamed again. I was in a village, but it was empty. No walls. No people. Just sand. In the middle stood a door with no house behind it. I walked through it. On the other side was Charlotte. She was older than the photo, maybe 15, sitting on a swing, feet just barely brushing the ground. She looked up at me, eyes too heavy for someone so young. "Did he suffer?" she asked. I didn't know what to say. "I dream of him sometimes," she said, "but I forget the sound of his voice." I knelt down beside her. "I don't," I said. "I hear it every time I step outside the wire." She smiled. A sad kind of smile. then vanished. I woke up gasping, sweating, heart racing. It was 0230. I didn't sleep again. The next day, the school was gone. Not burned, not bombed, just razed. Command said there was a miscommunication. An Afghan airstrike. Wrong coordinates. Wrong compound. We arrived too late to stop it. There was a charred backpack in the rubble. A child's shoe. I stared at the ashes for a long time. Reyes stood beside me, silent. No jokes today. Hashmi didn't say a word. Just walked into the wreckage and picked up a melted piece of blackboard. He held it for a second, then dropped it and walked away. Later, I found a rock with faded chalk letters still clinging to one side. I took it. I still have it. It sits on my desk, even now. Back at the FOB, I sat in the comms room after dark, headset off, just listening to the static. I pressed record on Gibbs' old voice recorder. The school's gone. I don't know if we lost a bomb lab or a second chance, but I know it didn't feel like a victory. I know the girl from my dreams is watching me, and I know I need to be someone she can believe in. I stopped the recording, and for the first time since I arrived, I cried. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly, like the wind. Some places don't feel like Earth. They feel older, sharper, like they were carved out of time by hands that didn't care if humans ever came near them. That's what it felt like. The night we entered the mountains outside Musakala. There were no houses, no roads, just jagged rock, bone-dry winds, and ridgelines that looked like broken spines under the moonlight. I remember thinking, this is where ghosts come to rest. Our target was a cave complex, buried somewhere near the village of Tugra. Intel said a high-value target, a known Taliban financier, was hiding there. Our mission was simple: recon, confirm, and if possible, capture. Nothing is ever simple in Afghanistan. We moved under cover of night. I led a fire team of 6 Marines and 4 ANA commandos. Reyes was with me, eyes scanning the hills, knuckles white around his rifle. Toller carried the comms pack, grumbling about the terrain. Hashmi's men moved quiet as shadows, their eyes always a few steps ahead. The climb took hours. No talking, just boots against stone and lungs trying to keep rhythm with the mountain's silence. The moon hung low, painting everything in pale silver. Every sound, a pebble kicked loose, a fabric scrape, felt amplified. When we finally saw the cave, it didn't look like much. Just a black mouth in the side of the rock. But the heat signatures on Reyes' scope told another story. Movement. At least 4 inside. I gave the signal. No gunfire unless necessary. We moved in. The cave was deeper than expected. Twisting paths. Crates. Flashlights swinging on nails. A mat laid out with empty teacups. Signs of life. But no people. Then we found the chamber. It wasn't a sleeping area. It was storage. Weapons. Ammo. Maps. Paper files. Reyes found a metal case buried beneath a tarp. When he opened it, he froze. LT, you need to see this. Inside were folders. American names. Afghan families. Photos. Addresses. Some were marked with red ink. Some were crossed out entirely. Kill list. Not just for combatants. For civilians. Interpreters. Journalists. Teachers. Hashmi scanned the names, his face pale. He recognized 3. We didn't speak for a long time. Then I gave the order. All of this comes with us. Toller protested. LT, we don't have enough bodies to carry this, and still fight if something hits us. I'm aware, I said. We make it work. We burned what we couldn't carry. Part of me hated it, the idea that we were destroying evidence. But we couldn't leave it behind. Not for them. Not again. On the way out, we came under fire. 1 minute, it was quiet. The next, gunfire erupted from the ridge above. Muzzle flashes like lightning. Reyes was hit. Arm, not fatal. One of Hashmi's men dropped instantly, a round through the chest. We scrambled for cover, returning fire, radios blaring. I remember grabbing Reyes by his vest and dragging him behind a boulder, bullets chewing the dirt near my boots. Toller called in air support. We needed extraction. Fast. Minutes felt like hours. My rifle jammed once. My hands were shaking too hard to clear it at first. And then, above the screaming, the gunfire, I heard it. A low rumble. At first, I thought it was the mountain groaning. But it was rotors. Rescue. A CH-53 dropped flares and lit up the valley. The enemy scattered into the dark. We didn't chase. We couldn't. The bird touched down. Dust filled everything. I threw Reyes on board, climbed in last. I turned once, looked back at the cave. It was already disappearing into shadow again, like it never existed. Back at base, the docs patched up Reyes. He made a dumb joke about asking for morphine and a milkshake. I nodded, smiled, sat with him until he fell asleep. Then I walked to the edge of the outpost, where the floodlights faded into sand. I took out the voice recorder. Day 41. We pulled names from the mountain. Names of people who might still be alive. People who wouldn't know someone wrote them off. I keep thinking about that. That a man with a pen can decide who dies. That the rest of us are just trying to outrun his ink. I looked at the stars. They didn't feel like mine anymore. The next morning, the CIA rep who'd fed us the intel came by. He shook my hand, called the mission a strategic success, said we were efficient. I handed him the files, looked him in the eye. They were people, I said, not assets. He didn't respond, just walked away. Later, I found Hashmi by the motor pool, smoking a cigarette he swore he'd quit months ago. He didn't look at me when he spoke. One of the names was my cousin's wife, he said. She teaches girls. In Kunduz. I'm sorry, I said. She's alive, he said. For now. Then he handed me a paper, one of the names we saved. On the back, in English, he'd written, "Saving one life is saving all of humanity." That night, I couldn't sleep again. The cave, the gunfire, the boy who didn't make it back. It all cycled in my head like static. I opened my journal. The pages smelled like sweat and dust and ink. I wrote one sentence. We are all names on someone else's list. Until we aren't. And then I whispered Charlotte's name. Not into the recorder. Not onto the page. Just into the dark. In case something, or someone, was still listening. You don't know the war is leaving you until you realize you've stopped hearing the gunfire in your sleep. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was something like quiet. A heaviness, still there, just sitting differently on the chest. My deployment was ending. 49 days out. Not that anyone was counting, except all of us. The younger guys started carving notches into their helmets. Reyes had a calendar scratched into the plywood wall of our tent. Even Hashmi, normally as emotionless as a sunrise, cracked a smile during chow one day and said, "Maybe your America misses you after all." But I didn't feel relief. I felt lost. Because once the countdown starts, everything becomes a last. Last patrol. Last sunrise over the FOB. Last letter home that you know will be postmarked from war. I wasn't ready for any of it. They offered me a desk job at Camp Lejeune. Said I had a promising command future. Good evaluations. Clean file. I could be captain inside a year if I played it right. I smiled. Saluted. Said thank you. Then signed up for one last mission. It was supposed to be simple. Escort an ANA family convoy evacuating from Kajaki. Taliban pressure had increased in the northern valleys. Intel said foreign fighters had joined the local cells. Women and children were disappearing again. Same cycle. Same ghosts in new uniforms. Hashmi led the Afghan side. I brought Reyes and a handful of our squad. We didn't need many bodies, just enough to say, "You're not alone." It was an uneventful ride, at first. Long stretches of nothing. Women clutching scarves to their mouths. Babies too tired to cry. Men who looked like they'd been holding their breath for a decade. And then I saw her. A girl. Dark-haired. Small. Maybe 10. She sat between her grandparents in the back of a truck, clutching something in both hands. A blue ribbon and a plastic toy with no wheels. She looked straight at me as we passed her. Eyes like questions. Eyes like Charlotte's photo. And I broke. Later that night, at the rest stop camp, I found her again. She was sitting near the fire, watching the flames like they might tell her a story. I walked over slowly. Sat down 2 feet away. Said nothing. She reached out and offered me the toy. I didn't take it. Just looked at it, and then at her. "Your father here?" I asked softly. She shook her head. One word. Shaheed. Martyr. It was a word I'd heard too many times, in too many languages, from both sides. I nodded. "Mine too," I said, not even sure why. She leaned her head on her knees and closed her eyes. And I promised myself, this would be my last mission. Because I didn't want to carry more names. 3 weeks later, I boarded the bird back to Bagram. Final extraction. Gear light. Soul heavier. Hashmi shook my hand at the airfield. "You fought with dignity," he said. "And you stayed human. Coming from you, that almost sounds like a compliment. It's the best kind I have." We didn't hug. Soldiers don't. But I felt the weight of his hand long after he walked away. On the flight home, I sat in the back row of the C-17, behind the pallets and crates, beneath the red glow of the interior lights. I pulled out Gibbs' voice recorder. The battery light blinked. I pressed record anyway. Final entry. Afghanistan is behind me now. Or maybe I'm just behind Afghanistan. I don't know. I thought leaving would feel like escape. It feels more like walking out of a house you used to live in, knowing the walls remember more about you than you do about yourself. I stopped recording. The battery died right after. Fitting. Back in the States, everything felt too loud, too clean, too polite. The sand was gone, but I still tasted dust. The uniform came off. The ribbons were boxed. The deployment was summarized into 3 lines in my file. But one thing stayed with me. A photo. Wrinkled. Faded. Charlotte, with a gap-toothed smile and arms flung wide like she was trying to hug the world. And the letter. Gibbs' last words. Folded, unread. I had carried it for months, through rain, fire, explosions, but I couldn't open it until I was home. That night, in a quiet apartment I barely recognized as mine, I sat on the floor and unfolded the paper. It was short. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I should have taught you more. I should have told you sooner how proud I was of you. Tell my daughter. Tell her I fought to come back to her. Tell her I never stopped loving her, not even for a second. And if you see her again, tell her. I sent my best man. I didn't cry. Not then. But I sat there for hours, holding that letter like it was the last part of me that made sense. And in that moment, I knew something for certain. I couldn't go back to who I was. I had stood watch over life and death. And now, I would stand watch in another way. Not with a rifle. Not with a title. But with purpose. The next day, I started sketching ideas. A team. A mission. A way to protect people, the right way. Not just from bombs, but from everything that falls in between them. I didn't know what it would be called yet, or how I'd fund it, or who'd stand beside me. But I knew this. War may have taught me how to lead men, but it was Gibbs, and that promise, that taught me how to fight for something worth keeping alive. I didn't know what peace looked like until I tried to live in it. After Afghanistan, the silence wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. No radio static. No sand in my eyes. No men shouting for cover. Just empty rooms and the hum of the fridge in a 1-bedroom apartment that didn't smell like anything. I tried sleeping in a bed. Woke up on the floor 3 nights in a row. I tried visiting my parents. My mom cried quietly. My dad said he was proud, but his eyes didn't know where to look. They were immigrants. They'd come here for peace, and I brought war back to the dinner table. People called me captain, even after I took the uniform off. Some with reverence. Some with politics. Some with pity. But no one knew what to do with me when I just said, I'm not sure who I am without it. I spent a year drifting. Workouts. VA appointments. Coffee with men who wouldn't look you in the eye unless you said, Semper Fi. I tried corporate gigs. HR lectures. PowerPoint presentations about leadership structure. None of it fit. I wasn't broken, but I was unfinished. The war hadn't ended when I left Afghanistan. It had just moved inside me. And then, one day, I pulled Gibbs' voice recorder out of the drawer. Dead battery. Dusty as hell. But I still remembered how it felt to hold it under that red moonlight outside the wire. I played the last message, the one I thought I'd lost. My voice came through, scratchy and quiet. If I don't make it back, tell Charlotte her father was the kind of man who made you believe in goodness again. And then I knew. I needed to build something. Not for war. For those who survived it. 1 desk. 1 laptop. 1 promise. It wasn't about guns. Not really. It was about presence. About watching the doors no one else saw. About making sure no daughter ever had to wonder if her father died in vain. I named it after Gibbs. Ashline, part ashes, part lifeline. My first recruit was Reyes. Discharged. Sleepless. Brilliant with networks and signals. He showed up with a backpack and a laptop duct taped together. Second was Maya Keller, former Air Force, cyber intelligence. We met at a veteran job panel. She challenged my business pitch, then emailed me a 9-page rewrite the next day. I hired her instantly. Then came Toller. Then Hashmi, working from Kabul as our eyes on the ground. We weren't just security. We were something else. We escorted war correspondents, protected aid workers, retrieved kidnapped civilians from cartel territory. We stopped a trafficking ring once, just outside Kandahar, using nothing but intel, courage, and 1 very old pickup truck. But the thing I was proudest of? We set up a hotline. For veterans. Silent ones. Ones who couldn't call the VA because the VA took too long. We answered within 4 rings. Always. I thought of Charlotte often. I never contacted her. Not yet. But I kept the photo. I kept the letter. I read them sometimes when nights stretched too long and silence got too loud. And then I saw her name. Hospital intake file. Overdose. No next of kin listed. I made 3 phone calls. Pulled every favor I had. By morning, she was moved to a private facility. By nightfall, I was on a plane. I remember the first time I saw her, really saw her, lying in that hospital bed, tubes in her arms, skin pale and thin like paper. I remember thinking, how much pain do you carry to choose oblivion over waking up? And I remember the way her eyes opened. The way she looked at me like I was someone who belonged in a different lifetime. I told her the truth. I told her I knew her father. I told her he asked me to find her. I told her I had waited too long. Helping Charlotte wasn't redemption. It wasn't a mission. It was a reckoning. Because in saving her, I had to confront every ghost I'd dragged home. Gibbs, Hargrove, the girl in the rubble, the names in the cave. All of them. Charlotte didn't need a savior. She needed someone who wouldn't run. So I stayed. Not as a Marine. As a man. Today, Ashline has 36 employees, a veteran support foundation, 2 trauma therapists on payroll, and a corner office I rarely sit in. I spend most of my time in the field. Quiet cities. Risk zones. Places that feel too familiar and not at all like home. But now I know what home is. It's not a country, or a uniform, or a flag. It's a promise you keep long after the war ends. It's a voice on the other end of the line saying, you're not alone. It's a girl named Charlotte, rising from ashes, building a world out of the pieces that tried to break her. And it's a photograph, now framed, sitting on my desk. A father, a daughter, a future neither of them saw coming. My name is Singh. I fought a war. I came home in pieces. I lost my guide, found my reason, and became something I never thought I could be. A quiet guardian in a world that forgot how to protect its own. This is not a war story. It's a love story. For the men I couldn't save. For the child I kept my promise to. And for the life I'm still learning how to live. Subscribe now and never miss out.